Hello everyone, I am Buddha and welcome to the second episode of Startcraft, making Starcraft accessible. This is a show where we are going to learn to watch Starcraft with all the excitement of a professional game, but focusing on the very basic things that make up the game. Now in this second episode, first let's start off by recapping the first episode. If you remember, we said that StarCraft is an RTS, a real-time strategy game, much like chess, but without turns. A player is free to act as fast as their fingers will let them. So two players duke it out on a map to eliminate each other and win the game. Now there are three races in StarCraft. The Protoss, right here, the Terrans, right here, and the Zergs. Now in this episode we are actually going to watch two professional Protoss players duke it out. To win a game, if you remember, a player must eliminate all buildings of his opponent or force his opponent to forfeit and leave the game. Now let's jump right into the game. If you remember correctly, these blue minerals are resources. A player must harvest these minerals as well as this green gas right here in order to build more production structures and units. But with these units you can attack, you can get more bases, you can harvest more minerals, and eventually win the game. Now let's start the game. This game is on a map called Xel'Naga Caverns, because yes, there are different maps in StarCraft. Last game, I don't actually remember what map we watched, but this one is called Xel'Naga Cavern. It is a 2-player map, and in StarCraft you can actually play a 4-player map, or an 8-player map, or whatever amount of player maps with only 2 players if you so desire. The advantage of a 2-player map, or disadvantage depending on your point of view, is that you immediately know where your opponent is. Now this game features 2 players, a Korean player called OGS MC and a Canadian player called EG Huck. The EG and OGS in their names are actually their team names, so there are professional StarCraft teams. This allows these players to actually practice not on the ladder but between each other and practice specific strategies to get better. Now this is a Protoss. This is the main Protoss building. It is called a Nexus, comparable to the command center for the Terran if you watch the first episode. These little units here are called probes. They are the equivalent of the SCVs for the Terran player, and they are the ones who go back and forth between the mineral patches to harvest minerals. The mineral count is, as the Terran player displayed on the top right corner right here, so our player OGS MC has 400 minerals. And this is an assimilator allowing you to harvest gas. Now these probes, you might wondering what they're doing, they're trying to chase away the blue player's probes. Now I know this is confusing with the colors. I've had this a lot. People comment this a lot because the Protoss, as you can see, is yellow. It is a race that will look yellow, but if you look at the Nexus here, you can see some red shading right here, as well as this pylon. We'll come back to what a pylon is. And these probes have some little red. Compared to their opponents, which you can see they're actually blue. So we have a red player and a blue player, and we will not call them yellow, even though this is just a color specific to the race. So every Protoss will have this goldish yellow shading, but their actual game color is this blue shade right here. Now if you remember the first game, we mentioned that supply was what enables you to support your army. Building supply depots for a Terran will actually raise your supply. This is achieved with pylons for the Protoss player, except pylons will serve a double purpose. They will also power your buildings. So if you look at MC's base right here, he has a pylon, and you can see this blue circle is the radius in which the pylon can actually power buildings. So every single building, with the exception of the Nexus and the simulator, has to be powered by a pylon. And the pylon will also up the food count right here. So you can see that e.g. Huck has 27 on 34 food, and OGS MC has 26 on 26 food. Now, pylons are a way of bringing power, obviously, to the Protoss race, which in turn can support a bigger army. Now, we finally see a unit from a Protoss player. This is called a Zealot. It is the base, very first unit you can build, except for the probes, very first attacking unit that the Protoss can build. You can see that the Zealot is equipped with double side blades, these little blades on his wrists, and he attacks for 8 damage twice. He is very much more resilient than a Marine for the Terran, which is his base unit, and a Zerglin for the Zerg that we will cover in episode 3. But he is also a bit more expensive, costing 2 supply and 100 minerals to produce. And one thing to note is that he cannot attack from a distance. He needs to be right next to his opponent to actually attack. This is what we call a melee attack. Another unit just popped out. This is a sentry. It is very much weaker than the Zealot. It only attacks for 6 damage and once. It is a ranged unit, so this one does not need to be right next to his opponent to actually attack. It has a little beam, a disruption beam, and its advantage is that it has actually 3 skills, one of which is Force Field, which builds this little dome of energy which is impenetrable by units. We will see it in action later. Now it looks like OGS MC is going for a lot of technology. We can actually see okay, we will go through these buildings one by one. The gateway is the main production building. It can produce some very low, cheap units such as Zealots, Sentries, Stalkers, and eventually some higher tier units. If you remember, tiers are how high up the technology tree a unit is. So Zealots and Sentries, Zealots tier 1, Sentries I'm not too sure, maybe tier 1 or tier 2, but they do need a cybernetics core to be produced. So once you have this cybernetics core, you can actually produce Sentries out of these gateways. Now after having a cybernetics core, you can actually produce one of a few buildings, one of which is a Twilight Council shown right here. Huck has also a Twilight Council. The Twilight Council will enable further technologies and will also provide 2 upgrades that we will go through a bit later. After having a Twilight Council, you can actually build a Dark Shrine. The Dark Shrine will enable you to build Dark Templars. As soon as our Dark Templar is on the field, we will see what it does. And this finally is a forge. This does not require any buildings to build, so you can build it straight away, obviously inside a power field, and will enable you to get upgrades. If you select the forge, you can see the 3 upgrades are available here, as well as building cannons, which are these defensive structures right here that shoot for 20 damage. They shoot these little orbs of energy at the enemies. Now let's keep going in the game, and there is one thing that is great for a Protoss player, and it is Warp Gate. You can see these gateways are slowly transforming into Warp Gates. And what this enables you to do is precisely what you see here. Warp in units anywhere that you have power on the map. So as long as you have a pylon somewhere, the player can actually warp in units there. This is why Huck, right now, the red player, is placing pylons across the map. You can see he has one very close to his opponent base, and he was able to warp in a sentry right next to his opponent's base. Now these are what we call Stalkers. Stalkers are 4-legged robots that shoot some little lasers for 10 damage and 14 damage versus armored, which these Stalkers are. The Zealots here, they are light and biological, so they will not take extra damage from the Stalkers. The Stalkers are a bit faster than the Zealot and Sentries, which enables them to be a bit more mobile on the map and attack. So Huck is attacking MC's base, and we see our first force field here by MC, preventing these Stalkers from actually walking up the ramp. So this is how useful a sentry is. And we just witnessed the blink ability. Blink ability is research from the Twilight Council. You can see that OGS MC has not researched it, but if we go to Huck's base and select the Twilight Council, you can see that the blink ability has been researched. The blink ability will enable these stalkers to teleport a short distance to wherever they can see. So they were on the low ground here, and they could see the high ground, so they blinked up and went inside MC's base. Now, we mentioned this in the first game, that both players cannot see what their opponent can see. They can only see where they have units. So this is Huck's vision. He has control of his watchtower, which will give him wide vision around the center of the map. And this is OGS MC's vision, so you can see he has vision only of his main base and this pylon here. Now, we mentioned Dark Templars before. Dark Templars are these little guys here. They have very, very little health, but they do huge damage. They do 45 damage, and on top of that, they are invisible, so you need a detector to actually see these guys. Detectors are these cannons here, and there is also another unit called an observer for the Protoss player that is a detector. So right now, Huck is inside MC's base, but he cannot see this unit. So if you look at MC's vision, he cannot see this unit. There is actually a small blur that MC can see, so he can know that DT is there, a Dark Templar, but he cannot target this. So if you look, there is a little blur here that Huck can actually see, and trust me, he sees it. He knows that there is a Dark Templar here, and he blinks away, not taking any further damage. Meanwhile, there is a Dark Templar inside Huck's base doing a lot of damage, and Huck has decided to build a robotics facility, which is another unit production structure, much like the Warp Gate, but will enable a player to build units that are further up the tech tree, such as this observer. Now, the observer is invisible, like the Dark Templar, and does not attack, but is a detector. So as soon as this observer is out on the map, Huck is now able to see these Dark Templars and kill them. Now, there are no units to kill these Dark Templars. Finally, 3 Zealots have been warped in, and will finish off these DTs. You can see the DTs have just died. Now, one thing that is really fun about the Protoss player is that every unit has shields. You can see there is 80 shields and 80 health on this stalker. What's fun about shields is once your shields are damaged and a unit remains out of combat for a few seconds, so say after 10 seconds a unit has not attacked, has not suffered any damage, his shields will slowly replenish. So say you take 40 damage on your shields, wait 10 seconds, and the shields will slowly start regenerating. We will see this eventually. Meanwhile, MC is going for his robotics facility as well. He is adding more gateways. Now, more gateways will enable MC to actually warp in units, more units at the same time. And Huck right now is going to be attacking MC's base. Now, you usually don't see, if you have units on the low ground like Huck does here, you can see this is the low ground, this is the high ground, just because of this little cliff. You can't usually see up here unless you have a unit on the high ground, say right here to spot, or this observer. Since this observer is flying, he can actually see up here and allow the stalkers to hit this building. Now, this building is going to go down. And you're wondering why MC is not attacking the units from Huck. It's simply because MC doesn't think he can actually engage this in a favorable way. You can see now finally the Zealots are trying to move forward, but since MC knows that Huck has blink, Huck can just blink back and retreat. So there is no use to sacrificing these Zealots. And you can see there is a lot of back and forth dancing going on. There is a lot of back and forth dancing going on for these two players, and you see that a lot in professional game. This is what we call micromanagement, and microing units will actually allow you to get the most out of every single unit. We will come back to this small fight to give you an example of what microing is. So now there is an engagement between Huck Stalkers and Zealots and Stalkers from MC. You can see the definitive hue of red and blue on these units to distinguish each of them. Now the health bar up here will display the shields and the health. And we will actually slow down this engagement. And if you notice, every time a stalker, such as this one, is being damaged, Huck will actually blink them back. You can see these are being blinked back. Let's watch that again. There you go. Every time, or almost every time, a stalker is damaged, such as this one, you will see Huck blinking him back. This enables stalkers with higher health to actually stay in, tank the damage, and stalkers with lower health to actually go back and deal more damage. This is what we call, as I said, micromanagement, and obviously a stalker that has very little health will still deal its damage. Even though it cannot absorb any more damage, it can still deal the damage. So every stalker you keep alive is actually so important, and this is why Huck was doing the blink stalker micro, as we call it in this case, because they are blink stalkers, or stalkers using the blink ability. So that was blink stalker micro. Now MC was able to push back Huck's attack, and you can see that Huck has lost a pylon and was shortly supply blocked. See, 71 over 68 supply. This means he actually had enough pylons to support his entire army, but lost the pylon that was up here, so he lost 8 potential supply and dropped oversupplied. So this means that right now Huck cannot produce any more units until he gets more supply, which will be provided by these additional pylons. You can see the 2 pylons just finished, and now he has 77 on 84 supply, allowing Huck to build more supply. Now finally, MC is actually going to attack into Huck, and let's see if he can actually do any kind of damage. And this is usually the very, very tense moments in these games. You can see that MC has 1 upgrade for his attack. So remember that Stalkers did 10 damage and 14 versus Armored. Well, with this +1 attack, they actually do 11 damage and 15 versus Armored, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really is. It can really turn the tides of a battle. MC, before attacking, he will wait for this pylon to finish so he can warp in units to attack his opponent. And notice that MC is not using this Dark Shrine or not producing DTs anymore, simply because Dark Templars are very, very weak and will not survive a big engagement for very long. Now finally, MC is about to push into Huck's base. Huck can obviously see this because there is an observer here, and MC will try and engage here in a favorable fashion. He has researched his own blink, so look for a lot of blink stalker micro from these 2 players. You can see stalkers blinking back and forth. These stalkers are really worth their weight in gold because they are acting as a big meat shield for these stalkers to deal a lot of damage. Now Huck has killed every single zealot, and now Huck is just overwhelming MC with stalkers, and MC will lose every single stalker. And you can see the supply reflects this: 58 supply for Huck, 34 supply for MC, and Huck has a second base, which means he can mine from a second base, which means he can actually mine twice as much as MC. And MC knows this. He just lost his entire army. He knows that Huck is on 2 bases, that Huck can actually mine twice as much, ergo produce twice as many units. MC just lost his entire army and he GG's, which is good game, and he forfeits this game, conceding victory to Huck. So Huck has actually won this game, and that attack from MC is what we usually call an all-in. It means that MC had a lot of producing structures off of 1 base, a single base. He had 4 warp gates, 1 robotics facility off of 1 base, and this means that he's producing so many units that he cannot actually save up enough minerals to build a second base. This second base is 400 minerals. Meanwhile, Huck has actually saved up. he has the same amount of production structures, but eventually at one point in this game actually saved up enough minerals, so stopped producing from these structures, allowing him to actually expand. One other factor was that MC has a Dark Shrine. This is a very expensive structure, and Dark Templars are very expensive, especially on gas. They do cost 125 minerals and 125 gas, so that is a lot of gas, and that just gave the advantage to Huck in the later stages of the game and forced MC to actually go out of the game. So this concludes the second episode of Startcraft. Just a very fast recap. Startcraft, a real-time strategy game. All action happens at the same time. You mine blue minerals and green gas from these Vespene geysers and these mineral fields to produce units. The more you mine, the more you can produce. And Huck had 2 bases and as much production as his opponent. And eventually these minerals do run out, and you can see that MC has very little minerals left, and that is why he left. You win a game by forcing your opponent to concede victory to you, as Huck did to MC. So MC left the game conceding victory to Huck. That is how he won. And this was a Protoss versus Protoss game. The Protoss is a bit mystical, high-tech race that really loves lasers and robots and all that high-tech stuff. He can warp in units. Remember that upgrades can be used from the Forge. These gateways will enable you to produce units, as well as these robotics facility that allow you to produce higher tier units. Tier are technology plateaus in your technology tree. And well, that is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed these casts, guys. I will keep the next episode. We will be covering a Zerg versus Zerg, so we will finally get to see the 3rd race. If you like these episodes, subscribe to my channel and follow me on twitch.tv if you want to know when I go live. I do stream my ladder games, and thanks for watching, everyone, and until the next episode.